Bonjour, ici Renée Gratton de TVC 22. Bienvenue à une émission spéciale pour la Journée internationale des droits de la femme qui est le 8 mars. J'ai aujourd'hui le plaisir d'avoir avec moi Geneviève Lajoie, maire de Castleman, et Linda Pilon, qui porte beaucoup de chapeaux, entre autres trésorière de TVC 22, mais aussi entrepreneur. Alors, on a beaucoup de chapeaux, les trois ensemble. Pour les gens qui nous écoutent, vous allez avoir une expérience un peu différente à la Est ontarienne, on parle franglais. I speak English par moton. Et puis, c'est que dans notre région, on s'exprime, les Français parlent le français, les Anglais parlent l'anglais, et puis on se comprend. Alors, ça va être une nouvelle expérience. Mais aujourd'hui, je vous ai invité, merci madame, de venir partager avec moi vos expériences. On va parler de les expériences qu'on a comme femmes. Et puis, le thème de 2026 de cette journée est « Donner pour gagner ». Fait que je dirais que ce serait la première partie, puis peut-être pour commencer, si je parle de mon expérience, de ce que je trouve. Puis quand j'entends ces mots-là, donner pour gagner, je pense à bénévole, du bénévolat qu'on donne, mais aussi des expériences tout à fait différentes où on donne plus de nous pour pouvoir obtenir. Alors, il y a tellement de choses qui me viennent en tête, mais certainement comme directrice d'une organisation à but non lucratif, oui, je suis employée, oui, j'ai un salaire, mais travailler pour une organisation à but non lucratif, c'est pas nécessairement un job normal. Non. Alors, pour moi, mais par contre, j'ai fait du bénévolat toute ma vie. Mm-hmm. Donc, pour moi, si je pense au bénévolat que j'ai fait, il y a toujours eu énormément de retours. Puis je pense que c'est pour ça que ma première expérience de bénévolat, j'avais 15 ans et j'étais à Kéla, chef des louveteaux à Alfred. Et puis, ça a dû être une bonne expérience parce que je l'ai toujours fait toute ma vie. Mais c'est sûr que je pense que ça vient aussi de comment on est élevé, entre autres, du moins. Et puis, le sens d'appartenance communautaire que ma famille avait, puis ils m'ont donné. Mais, les gains, ce que j'ai gagné avec ça au travers des années, il y en a tellement que je pense que je ne pourrais pas toutes les nommer, mais certainement des connaissances. Donc, en grandissant du réseautage, qui a aidé mon travail, ma carrière, et puis apprendre des connaissances de toutes sortes d'autres mondes, la joie. La joie, je pense, c'est peut-être le plus grand, là. Mais il y a tellement de choses. Ça fait que je serais curieuse de vous, avec vos chapeaux. Geneviève, on commence avec toi, ton expérience.
My experience, I think, in giving is advocacy. And I've received a lot of advocacy with the people around me that I was able to support. Like you said, it comes from a young age. I grew up and I had a very difficult childhood. It was unstable. I had excellent parents, but they had their challenges in their childhood, and it passes on through generations. So I learned to become a very empathetic child and a very compassionate child. And I was always very sensitive to the needs of people around me. And my parents taught me a lot about that. We were always very close. So as a young girl, I always stuck up for the needs of people that I saw that were vulnerable, including ants and worms on the road. Like, I will stop to pick up ants and worms
another girlfriend
today.
Like that.
Oh my goodness. I have a spider living in my kitchen right now. I won't kill it because everything deserves life. Everything wants to survive. Everything wants to eat. Everything wants to exist. And it's not for me to hurt people or tell somebody that they're not important or, you know, lesser than because they're a spider. So, so as a child, you know, I started with animal advocacy. I would kidnap dogs from their backyards thinking that they were stray. I'd bring them home and find that, you know, their parents came and got them from our neighborhood. But later, as I grew more mature, I was able to go to college in child and youth work, early childhood education. I began working in group homes and in schools and community centers, always working with the most vulnerable population that I could find, because it's so rewarding to work with people who need support. And so any place I was in, I would always advocate on myself for these people. And I gave a lot of myself, and something about advocacy is you need courage, because when you advocate for people, you have to advocate for what's right. And bureaucracy and the dynamics of cliques and groups and making jobs easy, people tend to...
It's there.
Yes.
Can't ignore them.
They become desensitized.
Yeah.
And I refuse to be desensitized in my life, and I will always stand for what's right. So I was often standing alone. And, you know, so I guess being mayor, I'm used to it because I'm alone, right?
Yeah.
Because as leadership is a very lonely place.
It is. Yeah.
You know, I'm sure you've
Yeah.
experienced that. I'm sure you've experienced that. It's lonely, it's hard, and it's something you wake up every day and decide to do. And I give that advocacy. But what you see is you see people advocating for themselves.
Yeah.
You see people learning how to speak their mind, and they're like, oh my gosh, that person just stood up for herself to all those people alone. I remember, okay, one of the most terrifying experiences I had was in high school. I was awkwardly social when I was young. I struggled with socialization, sense of belonging growing up, and I had challenges with that because we moved to Castleman when I was 12. Very different mentality, very different everything. So it was different. It was difficult. So I was kind of, you know, on my own. I had my friend groups, but I don't like being part of cliques, because when you're part of cliques, you turn into groupthink and you all have to kind of do the same thing, and it's too much stress for me. So I just do my own thing, and I join people when I feel like it. But there was this most popular girl in the school in my grade, in grade 11, grade 9, and the 11th graders were throwing rocks at her. And there was all her friends were around in a circle watching this happen. And so the bullies were throwing rocks at her, and she was huddled with her head in her knees.
Oh, my goodness.
All her friends were screaming, stop this, stop this. And I'm sitting alone, just like coloring or writing poetry, whatever I was doing. And I'm like, what is going wrong with these people? So I just got up. I was annoyed of hearing the screaming. I went in the circle. I just took the girl by her hand. I just guided her out.
Wow.
And then her friends came around her and just took her and left. And so then I was there alone with the bullies, and I was horrified. I was like, okay, this is the day I die. I don't think I'm making it home today. So I did, because I'm here. But they didn't retaliate against me, surprisingly. They actually came up to me and said, I like your shirt. And I look, and I had a John Lennon shirt on, and I thought, yeah, there's something really not well with you. You need help.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was their way of saying, good for you for standing up.
But you said something that struck me, that it takes courage,
Yes.
to be leader, and it takes even more. I think as a woman, and I've also done a lot of advocacy, and people will come up to, to me and say, oh my God, you are so passionate.
Yeah.
This was so interesting. You give it with
Yes.
such passion and whatnot, which is, I suppose it's nice, but at the same time, the best compliment I would get would be, or that I would feel, I should say, would be somebody saying, you are so brave for taking this on.
Yes.
I think as a woman,
That's important.
I think as a woman, courage is, you know, for me anyways,
Yes.
is that much more important. So like, what about you, Linda? Like, what was your experience and, you know, the differences through time that you feel, you know, giving the gain kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, for me, I started giving, if you want to call it that, volunteering at, my uncle was part of a Save the Capitol Theatre group.
Oh, right.
So they were looking for, you know, volunteers, and thankfully I had a good financial mind, so I was able to, you know, sell popcorn and drinks. And
How old were you?
I was 13 years
Oh
old.
my gosh, that's amazing.
And you know, I enjoyed it. Couldn't go when it was restricted movies though. But yeah, so I'd go there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. My mom never worried where I was. I was at the theater. So I started, you know, giving like that, and I enjoyed it. And once they were in a better financial situation, they started paying me $5 a night. I was like, whoa.
That was your first gain.
That was my first game. Yeah,
$5.
yeah. Wow,
Good.
it was something. And you know what? For me, I enjoy giving, and I don't necessarily want anything or look for anything in return. It makes me happy, and the reactions and, you know, the responses I get is what makes me happy. Right? You know, it just get more out of it than anything else. And you know, my job was supporting and giving to the services, and I worked in audit, so it was like always, you know, supporting the different areas of the company and whatnot. So like I enjoyed that. It was like it was in me.
Yes.
You know, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm on the board of directors for TVC Veilleur, which is, you know, I think an important decision I made, and I'm happy I took it because I enjoy giving. And
That's such an important role, by the way, because treasurers, no nonprofit could afford them, right? So you're giving your knowledge and your time for free.
yeah, well,
You
yeah.
know, it's incredible.
Yeah, and in part it's because, you know, TVC came around for one of my children that was having learning difficulties. Therefore, you know, I appreciated them giving my child a chance.
Yes.
And so I got involved. I came to the AGMs, and then we started talking with Renée. And then, you know, the next thing you know, they were looking. I was retiring. So, you know, I was looking for stuff to do. Not that I have a lack of stuff to do,
I'm
but
sure.
Yeah. So we nabbed her before she even
Yeah, good
got to
call.
retirement.
yeah, just before.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I when I do commit to something, I want to do it right. Otherwise, you know, I feel
And you know,
the need to step back if that's the case. So.
and the job of treasurer, whether it's at TVC 22 or any other nonprofit organization where you're a volunteer, many boards are volunteer, not all, but it's a heavy job, and it's also a really, really big responsibility because, and depending on the organization, but in our case, we are recipient of public funds. We are recipient of public funds. So it's a really big responsibility for the treasurer to ensure that those funds go to where they're supposed to go.
Yes.
And, you know, so it's not just attending, you know, one meeting a
ethics,
month,
everything.
you know, and being prepared for that meeting. It's ongoing work, and, you know, it's a big ask, you know. So, you know, we certainly feel that the gain is far more on the organizational side,
But you
know,
see
that
how
I
it came
can't.
from how you helped her
Yeah,
child.
it's like-
girl,
Yeah.
boy?
A boy.
A boy,
Yeah.
her son.
Yeah.
And you gave that, and even how community organizations give and
Yeah.
receive.
But
And I
when
must say, we have a great community. I mean, even with the our business, which is at the arena, we you know, we included a skate share program.
Yeah, tell us about that program, because it's really neat, you know. So you know, the gain, one would think that it's the kids that get that, but I would think that you, and I'm sure Mark, your husband, who is, your co-owner of the business and co-managers, I'm sure Mark gets a fuzzy feeling, but, you as a woman, like, what's that like when you see the kids? And tell us about the program and,
Well, Mark is a sharpener. I don't touch the sharpening machine. I don't touch that. He did ask me though, but I said, nope, that's your baby.
So first lesson as a woman, learning how to say no and set boundaries.
Yeah. But anyhow, no, it actually came about where an individual from one of the libraries, I believe it was Bourget, but I'm not 100% sure, approached us at the arena and said, we have skates at the library, but nobody knows that they're there to borrow.
Yeah.
So, she was going to talk and whatnot. And I said to Mark, why wait? Why don't we just reach out to the community and see if people have skates collecting dust at home? So why not do something? And so that's how it all started. And now we have over 90 pairs of skates where people can borrow free of charge. And what we do is we make sure they're well sharpened and laces are not, ripped, they're broken. And just seeing the people so happy that this is something they have in our community. We're still trying to get the word out there.
Yeah.
It's been almost 3 years now that we've been doing this. We have the libraries on board now. So the few skates that were at the libraries, they said, why not centralize everything in one place? They gave us our stock. And you know what? It's wonderful. We had people from France visiting, borrowing skates.
Right.
We had,
I was thinking maybe new Canadians.
New Canadians borrowing skates that have never never skated before.
Yeah.
It's very rewarding just to see the people enjoying the sport.
You said something also that, you thought of it and you spoke about. Do you guys think, either of you, do you think that sometimes we might be a little bit more, I don't know if the word is creative, but again, going back to a little bit more, braver and venturing and trying different things, that, I don't know, like, do we bring more ideas to the table? I don't know if there's a more or less, but...
Well...
So it's interesting for while you were talking, I was thinking about how your husband does the operational side of the business.
Yeah.
But you brought the community. You brought the heart, you brought the emotion, and you brought that connection. And that's something I think women typically tend to bring.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful that you brought that the community together through an entrepreneur business.
Thanks for that. But it's very, although it's a bit of time, and, but for what you get out of it, even if it's not the best right now, I think the city's on board. They put it on their website where they have their skating schedule. The libraries are on board, sending them our way.
It should be such a great model, right?
Yeah.
It's for other municipalities.
And to answer your question, Renée, you don't know if something's going to work unless you try.
Right.
So, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah,
But it's the not trying that...
But in that, if we think back, not that long ago, if a woman would bring an idea to the table, not so much. So post... Cub Scout leader, and once I graduated, I got in the building industry. Now talk about, and when I started, when I started, first just when I went to school, in architecture, we were 4 girls in the program, and only 2 of us finished it, and then starting in the industry, I remember like the first conference that I went to, it's like the presenters at the front, hey, gentlemen, and then stares at me and says, oh, and lady, talk about being pointed sort of thing. Certainly was a fish out of water. and then going back to, giving to gaining wasn't just the volunteer side of things, as a woman. And I bet you have that experience being the only mayor in Prescott, only female mayor in Prescott Russell, and certainly, one of the few in the region. Having to work 10 times as hard, having to, give a lot more to gain a little, and interestingly enough, I was, working like crazy to build my network in the building industry and to advance my career. But the big difference, or when it made a big difference, was when I started giving even more, which was volunteering for association, organizing events, and volunteering to organize the events.
You were being put in that feminine role.
Being put in the feminine role, and how it's still, even though there's definitely a lot of progress, well, definitely a lot more women in the building industry. But certainly still having to give more to gain somewhat, you know?
I hear what you're saying, but it was like that everywhere, I find. It reminds me of when I got pregnant the first time.
Oh my God, yeah.
I was an admin assistant to a director, and then all of a sudden I'm transferred to the reception desk and there's somebody doing my job. His wife had been sick throughout his pregnancy. So I guess he assumed that I would be sick. So he's like, well, ship you to the front. You wouldn't take that today. I mean, I took it, didn't know better.
Right.
But you wouldn't see that today. There was no voice.
Yeah.
And then, I was in a group of men as well. So, it's something looking back, I'm like, you wouldn't see that today. You would hope that if somebody's going through something similar, that they would stand up for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. What about you as a mayor? Do you want to talk about those?
No, or any other situations?
It really doesn't bother me. I'm an open book.
Yeah.
I don't hide anything behind anything political on myself. But I do find it's harder to have my voice heard because I'm not one to fight to be heard. I don't feel
you get
the need
that
to be
same
heard.
comment I get? You're so passionate, or you're emotional.
Yes, as I said, it's very predictably boring because assertive, direct women are always emotional. It's a historical fact. I was told that by the warden of Prescott Russell yesterday. Today we're Friday. No, Thursday. Yeah, yesterday, because I was advocating for affordable housing for Habitat for Humanity, and I felt that my message wasn't necessarily being understood well, and I was trying to repeat myself or say it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm also not good at gray areas. I'm very,
The black and
I
white.
don't know if I'm autistic in that sense, but I don't understand, read between the lines. I need to be told what you think so that I could process it and then respond.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of a general answer, and I kept asking the same question differently to see if I get the more.
And you don't know what they're saying. Are you saying
and
yes or no?
Okay, and now I feel really stupid, but I know I'm not stupid, but I was emotional, apparently.
Yeah.
But no, I'm an advocate, and I will fight for people struggling to buy homes. I will fight for people struggling to put groceries on their table. And I don't care if I come off as emotional.
Take care of your
I am
your
emotional.
people, yeah.
Everybody, every human being, including men, are emotional.
Right.
Come on.
And
We
that's,
just show it. We
It's
just
human
show it.
biology. It's courage.
Yeah.
right.
You don't like it, you can't take it.
Goes back to
then-
courage. It goes back to what I was
Exactly.
saying, the leadership role takes a lot of courage.
But we were allowed to, though. You have to recognize that men were never allowed to experience and show their feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even working in kindergarten
Absolutely.
rooms, I see the difference in how educators treat little boys who cry versus how little girls who cry. And I will always, when I see little boys cry, I'll say, good job. Like, you're showing your feelings. I'm proud of you. They're valid,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they would come to feel more comfortable expressing what they wanted. But men of these generations who are older mayors we're not taught that. So it's not their fault.
Well, there's also again, if you don't,
gaps there.
Exactly.
but
It's
if
how
you
they're
don't,
taught,
goes back
societal.
to, you look at the table at the county as well as many other locations or boards of directors, and we just recently addressed the issue that you were the only woman on the board, even though it's a small board, and we've addressed that issue, and then, but if you are at the table where there is an equilibrium, equality, balance across the board, if that one woman at the table is feeling alone, you'll
Needs to speak louder.
right?
She needs
Well,
to
she
come off
speaks
as
louder. But
emotional.
when there's balance, and then let's say that you're expressing it in one way and you're not coming across, the message is not coming across, but then another person who understands what you're saying can say it. And now there's 2 and 3 or 4, so if there was balance on the board, potentially that could make a difference.
Can I just add something to that fact? Is I was in a meeting with a bunch of men, and we were talking about something very important, and I said something, right? And everybody just kept, I don't even think they stopped talking for a beat to process what I said. They just kept going, and I thought, oh, okay, whatever, it's all good. I just find other ways to get my point across in different times. I am not a peacock where I need to show my feathers and be heard. But there was a man there who looked at me and he repeated what I said. And then he paused and he looked at me and he gave me the space to speak.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I have goosebumps, and I was
giving me
allowed to
goosebumps.
speak. I know. But
What a
he was my
impact.
advocate. It made a huge impact because those men actually stopped and looked at me, and I was able to speak without competition.
Yeah, and that's I've heard other women in leadership position before say that is and my mentor in the building industry was a guy, and he got teased. Had a red Trans Am at the time, and we'd show up on construction site and they'd call it his Pipmobile.
Oh, geez.
Because he was carrying a young woman with him.
Wow.
And
That's great.
but the best mentor. I was really, really, really fortunate, an incredible mentor. But yeah, I've heard the similar scenario from another female mayor, and saying exactly that. When the men learn to take the time to respect the woman and take the lead to sort of, sort of that old
The boys'
macho, the macho thing, open the door, but we still, we want equality, but we still need the support from the men, because we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a long way to go.
On the other hand, we're showing men it's okay to be vulnerable as well. So it kind of goes both ways. Vulnerability is not.
And then you
a
said,
weakness.
Well, look
It's
how
a
much,
strength.
you see men hugging now, which is awesome, if you ask me.
But you also said, Geneviève, as the mayor, you're running into an election year, and, you said other women and men are welcome to talk to you if they're interested in running, So I think it's a learning experience. It's, we are thousands of years, it's not going to change overnight. But I think we have a really... the day of March 8 is important to not just celebrate, say, celebrate one woman or another, or the rights of women, is that continuing conversation, about where do we go from here? What's the next step? Because it's an ongoing, scratching the surface of thousands of years.
Yeah. And it's not saying give us rights, we want this. It's just basically validating the fact that we've always been leaders. We've always been the things that historically we weren't valued for.
Yeah.
We always were through that time.
And we need more women. No, we need to have conversations that involve the men.
Yes,
you know, on an
absolutely.
ongoing basis. You know, conversation. I remember listening to a politician one time. They were talking about, you know, violence against women and all that. And they were starting to get on this research where they were actually talking to convicted rapists, convicted abusers in jail as to what was their breaking point? Like, what is it?
Right.
Why? Sort of thing, you know, and we're not going to solve, you know, preaching to the choir. We
Yeah.
know we need it, right? You know, but it's also inviting men in the conversation
Yeah.
that is changing, you know,
Absolutely.
changing, you know, open the proverbial door,
Right.
you know, so.
Because it's not a race.
Right.
We are equal. We all
a-
have the same rights.
Yeah.
It's just how
It's a
do we share
process.
them together?
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, we're all a community.
Yeah.
Whether, you know, you're a man, you're a woman.
Yeah. Passant à mes premières expériences, moi j'ai commencé, j'étais même pre-teen, faire du bénévolat avec les louveteaux, mais après ça, je me suis en allée dans une direction moins typique pour les filles. Je suis allée étudier en architecture. Et puis, quand j'ai commencé, on était juste 4 filles dans le programme. Et puis, finalement, on a gradué juste 2. Mais certainement que comme femme, ben, jeune femme, dans le temps, je n'étais même pas une femme encore à ce temps-là, j'étais une jeune ado. C'est certain que du début, j'ai expérimenté ce que les femmes vivaient. Puis, c'est certain que je sentais déjà qu'il fallait que j'en fasse plus. Il fallait que je sois plus éveillée, plus travaillante, plus pour pouvoir avoir le moindre reconnaissance, pour pouvoir avoir un job qui rencontrait mes études, pour pouvoir avoir un salaire, même si c'était moindre que les hommes. Encore aujourd'hui, les femmes, les femmes qui graduent d'ingénierie aujourd'hui ont encore le même cours,
Oui.
même...
Ça existe
Ça
encore.
existe.
Oui. Ils commencent à une moyenne de 17 à 20 % moins que les hommes.
Parce qu'on entend encore parler des médias.
C'est encore vraiment vrai, là.
Oui.
Puis, bon, me voilà aujourd'hui.
Puis on est en 2026, là.
c'est
C'est
ça.
le temps que le monde...
C'est ça, c'est
Et
ça.
même les travaux qui sont plus féminins, comme nursing
Oui.
ou les garderies, ils sont pas payés bien, right? Toutes
Non,
les autres,
c'est vrai.
tous les travails qui sont plus male.
Ouais.
Ouais.
Dominant.
Ouais.
They're always that type of work and field is always paid more, valued more.
Ouais.
So
Ouais.
c'est toujours difficile pour
C'est
les
ça.
femmes.
Puis, you know, ça l'a changé, mais il y a encore bien du chemin à faire. Puis, en plus de ça, aujourd'hui, puis, d'une manière, des fois, je me sens que je me plains, mais, you know, c'est une réalité qui est frustrante.
Oui,
C'est une
il faut
réalité qui est
continuer à
frustrante.
arrêter ça, les
parce que
stéréotypes. là.
Aujourd'hui, à 61 ans, puis durant la pandémie, you know, ma carrière a vraiment été affectée. Puis malgré le record de carrière que j'avais, je pouvais pas trouver du travail. Puis je me suis rendu compte que là, c'était plus juste le fait... Là, en fait, le fait que j'étais une femme, j'avais gagné mes médailles, j'avais fait bien... J'avais accompli beaucoup de choses. J'ai gagné des prix, j'ai eu des recommandations, blablabla. Mais là, tout d'un coup, c'est l'agisme, ageism. Fait que
oui.
là,
Ça,
je
c'est une
suis
autre chose.
une femme dans un milieu d'hommes, OK, passé 60 ans. OK? Tout d'un coup, c'est encore plus compliqué. Mais la pandémie a définitivement eu un impact là-dessus.
Oh,
là.
c'est certain.
Tu sais, ça fait que, en tout cas, tu sais, définitivement, faut donner plus pour gagner le moindre, le moindre avancement. Ça, c'est certain. En tout cas, ça, c'est mon expérience. Je ne sais pas, toi, Linda, comment est-ce que...
J'ai pas expérimenté ça trop dans mon travail, mais c'est pas parce que j'ignorais là, que ça n'arrivait pas. Puis je pense que c'est important qu'on en parle tout le temps, puis qu'on continue à poursuivre le trajet qu'on a commencé il y a longtemps afin d'arriver au point où
il y a une
tout
grosse
est
différence
égal.
dans les bureaux parce que toi, tu étais en administration.
Oui.
Il y a quand même une grosse différence aujourd'hui. Au moins dans les bureaux pour les femmes, il y a définitivement eu plus de progrès. Je pense. Peut-être que je me trompe, là, mais, you know.
Je créerais que oui, parce que, tu sais, j'ai entendu des histoires des grands-mères puis des belles-mères, puis, tu sais, d'où ce que... Tu sais, il y avait des typing pools dans le temps, puis, tu sais, c'était toutes des femmes qui faisaient ça, là. Il n'y avait pas grand homme là-dedans s'il y en avait. So, tu sais, puis elle me racontait de l'abus, tu sais, l'abus qu'elle a eu, elle, pendant qu'elle était là, puis que, oui, c'était une position du gouvernement, mais il n'y avait pas de zero tolerance policies ou, tu sais, des anti-bullying ou rien de même. So, qu'est-ce qu'elle a fait? Elle a laissé son emploi, mais... Tu sais, c'était pas correct, ça.
Non, c'était pas correct. Non. C'est ça.
Les femmes, dans ce temps, n'avaient pas d'autres avenues.
Exactement. Il n'y avait pas d'autres avenues, puis ils se sentaient tout seuls. Il n'y avait pas d'appui par personne. Puis là, ben, on est venu, on a fait du chemin là-dessus. Puis je suis contente de voir, mais on a encore beaucoup de chemin à faire.
Yeah. Jen, like, I mean, when you go to the AMO conference or some of the conferences, like, what's the ratio of women amongst men, you know, in terms of mayors or whatever? Like, how's that?
There's suites, and all the women are the mayor's wives.
Okay.
Right.
So, I mean,
interesting.
It's difficult. Who do I sit with? Who do I talk with? I mean, so I go sit and talk with the women, but it's a different conversation. And
Mais ils disent, hein? Behind every good man, there's a good woman.
Non, c'est vrai. Toutes les femmes sont tellement bonnes.
Yeah.
Oui, et sont tellement fins. Les hommes sont bons, mais c'est it's intimidating being in the suite.
It has to be intimidating.
Yes, because we have suites, right? And then that's where, you know, we all share, we all go together with other municipalities and regions. And, you know, I'm short, this little short person, and I'm a very quiet person by nature, and you know, surrounded by these tall men, and it gets very intimidating, and it's uncomfortable, and it's not because they're rude.
Yeah.
At
No,
all.
no, not
it's
at all.
my own feelings, right? So
Yeah.
I need to work on this on my own.
Yeah.
But it's difficult when you don't have a group of people that you feel comfortable going to.
Ouais.
So I just stopped going.
C'est comme
Mais
les
c'est ça,
Mais
ton
si je vais pas-
expérience, justement, parce que moi, c'est pareil avec les conférences. Moi,
Oui,
justement,
c'était toutes les
dans
hommes.
les suites, là,
Oui,
tu sais, comme
it's
tu dis, là,
awkward.
dans les suites exécutives là,
Yeah.
de l'hôtel et tout ça.
Oui.
Et puis, c'est... oui, c'est inconfortable, surtout quand c'est surtout plus les hommes. Et puis, d'autres fois où un homme galant m'a accompagné à ma voiture, parce que c'était très tard le soir à Montréal. Puis j'étais super contente. Mais en même temps, je me dis, mais c'est pas juste que je dois avoir un homme pour me sentir confortable à marcher à ma voiture.
But how sad is it in society that we do need that?
Ouais.
We do, because when I was at those conferences, you know, by nature, I'm an advocate. I social work and education and advocacy as a mayor. And so I was talking to this man, and he was sad, and he thought I want to have sex with him. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on TV. But, you know, I went to my hotel room. I'm alone, and I call my husband. I'm crying because I felt this huge shame, this sense of shame.
C'est nous autres qui se sentent coupables.
I'm like, what did I do? I mean, it's my fault. Why did I put myself in that situation? Why? And I'm thinking,
on est dur sur nous-mêmes.
I mean, come on, you know.
Si tu es plaisante et puis tout ça, là, tu donnes l'impression que t'es prête à plus.
Yes.
si tu es trop ferme, ben là,
Well, you're just
tu
the
sais
B
qu'est-ce que
word.
t'es.
Oui, ben oui.
Si tu...
If you're assertive,
puis si tes émotions, si tu
Émotions.
laisses tes émotions passer, ben là, t'es trop
You're
émotionnel.
unstable.
Tu sais, c'est comme...
C'est toujours...
On peut pas gagner.
C'est dur
jamais.
de trouver le ballon. Puis moi,
Oui.
une chose que je trouve avec les années, j'ai vraiment pris ma place. Ben, tu sais, quand je suis rentrée, j'étais tout jeune, j'avais même pas 20 ans encore. Puis j'ai fait une carrière quand même de 35 ans dans l'industrie. Tu sais, ça fait que j'ai trouvé ma place. Puis, puis je me rappellerai toujours d'un party de Noël où on était... Puis là, il y en avait une toute jeune. Puis là, je te parle dans les dernières années, là, tu sais. Puis il y en avait une fille, elle disait, moi, elle dit, je comprends pas pourquoi les femmes, elles disent que que c'est difficile et puis bon, blablabla. En tout cas, j'étais pas pour m'embarquer dans une grosse discussion.
Right.
Mais c'est un homme qui a dit, on va l'appeler, je sais pas moi, José. Tu sais, José, la raison pourquoi que tu vois pas de différence puis que ça va bien pour toi, c'est parce que des femmes comme Renée ont payé les dus.
Oh,
Puis ça m'avait fait vraiment...
ça, c'est vrai.
Puis c'est ça, parce que ça m'a vraiment fait chaud au cœur parce que lui était plus de mon âge.
Oui.
Puis il a vu la merde que j'ai dû passer au travers. Tu sais, tu dis, embarquer tu sais, avec un homme pour t'en retourner à l'hôtel ou au bureau, whatever. Puis je pense que j'ai déjà compté, là, tu sais, mon premier mentor, tu sais, un homme de classe, mais il y avait une Transam rouge. Dans le dîner, de s'acheter une Transam rouge. Et puis, tu sais, on parlait de lui, puis on disait, tiens, là, Billy, on va dire, on va l'appeler Billy avec son pimp mobile. Parce que il me charriait d'un site à l'autre, tu sais, puis dans le temps, toute jeune. Mais c'est sûr que quand... Ça prend du temps. Mais quand on est capable de passer par-dessus ça, aujourd'hui, si je regarde la carrière que j'ai faite, puis ce que je suis venue à bout d'accomplir, je suis contente. Puis il faut absolument impliquer plus d'hommes dans les conversations parce que il y a eu des hommes extraordinaires. Je dirais, il y a eu plus d'hommes extraordinaires parce que sans ça, je serais partie avant.
Tu sais, ce qui arrive, t'entends moins parler de ces personnes-là parce qu'ils ont fait du bien. So, on est plus tendance à parler de les personnes, les hommes, on parle d'hommes, les hommes qui ont fait du tort, disons.
Et c'est vrai, c'est naturel.
C'est ça qu'on devrait, tu sais, on a notre
célébrer les bonhommes
ici, là, tu sais. Oui, mais on devrait avoir des discussions avec les hommes qui puissent nous dire qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire comme, qu'est-ce qui aiderait à avancer plus vite. Tu sais? Ou quelqu'un qui a changé, parce qu'il y en a des hommes qui ont changé dramatiquement avec les années pour une raison ou une autre. Qu'est-ce qui les a fait changer? Tu sais, like, from your perspective, you've got good mayors, you've got, anybody that puts their foot forward in politics, is a brave person.
Ce qui arrive aussi, c'est qu'on entend des hommes qui ont fait de l'abus, mais les hommes qui étaient là,
ils se vendent pas.
Les hommes qui étaient là aussi, qui voyaient ça, puis qui se sentaient mal, mais ils n'osaient pas parler, tu sais. So, ça doit être difficile pour eux aussi, là, dans ces situations de même. Parce qu'ils veulent pas que ça arrive.
Et puis ça doit être mélangeant. Je m'excuse, aujourd'hui, ça doit être super mélangeant pour un homme. Parce que moi, j'aime encore me faire ouvrir la porte.
Oui.
Tu sais, je suis une femme très mélangée. Parce que... je suis une femme mélangée parce que j'aime...
The old classic role.
J'aime
chivalry, right?
Ouais, chivalry,
c'est quoi
le
mot?
gentleman. J'aime certaines choses, mais je veux être traitée comme égale. Ça doit être hyper mélangé. Puis
mais ça dépend aussi, c'est qui. Si c'est un conjoint ou un ami spécial, ben là, tu veux qu'il fasse ces affaires-là. Mais si c'est ton coworker, là, tu sais, tu peux pas nécessairement être traité de même, tu veux être égal.
Tu veux être traité égal, c'est sûr.
Ça, c'est
ce que je veux dire, c'est que pour les hommes, ça doit être super mélangeant parce que
You don't
surtout
want your
après le We Too movement, right? You know, it's like, what can I say, what can I not? Like, you know, il y a des choses qui sont flagrantes, qui sont claires, là, tu sais. Mais je pense que pour des hommes, il doit y avoir bien des points aussi. Devrais-tu pas? Devrais-tu demander? Tu sais, comme, you know?
C'est vrai.
Il y a beaucoup d'ignorance aussi là-dedans.
Ouais.
Can I share a funny story about ignorance?
Ah oui, donc.
I was at a conference and we were at the table, we're all eating, and there was a quiet moment, and I guess the person sitting beside me, you know, wanted to fill in the conversation, and he turned to my husband. He's like, so Dennis, what's the favorite thing Jen cooks for you? And we looked at each other because I don't cook. I don't clean. And we started laughing, and Dennis like, I have no idea. Maybe she warms up, you know, with like pizza in the microwave. And he was like, what? And I said, I don't cook. I burn things. And, but that's just, you know, think about what you're asking. Don't assume that women fill these traditional roles because we don't. And for women to not assume men fill these traditional roles either of being big, burly, strong men, you know?
Ben surtout aujourd'hui, il y a tellement, tu sais, de couples qu'il faut qu'ils travaillent les deux. C'est plus comme c'était dans le bon vieux temps, là, tu sais. Où que oui, la femme reste à la maison, prenait soin des enfants, la popote, blablabla. C'est plus de même, les deux. Dans un couple, les deux, il faut qu'ils travaillent.
Oui, aujourd'hui, surtout.
Ça, tu peux pas afforder la maison, puis même des fois, tu peux pas afforder la maison, même s'il y en a deux.
Exactement.
Yeah, we need 3.
Mais il y a définitivement eu du progrès, mais il y a encore beaucoup à faire. Mais il reste que... je suppose que si j'avais à choisir aujourd'hui, si je revenais en homme ou en femme, je suis contente. Tu sais, il y a beaucoup de choses comme femme que je suis heureuse.
Oui, puis il ne faut pas oublier, on est qui qu'on est aujourd'hui à cause de tous ces challenges-là, puis les...
Oui.
Tu sais ce que je veux dire? Faut pas,
ça t'a formé.
Oui, il ne faut pas oublier ça, parce que c'est important.
Oui, définitivement, tu as raison, parce que je sais qu'aujourd'hui, je suis capable d'être avec n'importe qui, puis je vais dire ce que je pense.
Oui.
Tu sais, parce que j'ai évolué dans ça. Ah, mon Dieu, mes échecs dans les premières années, mettons, un échec de demande de soumission. Je prenais les choses tellement personnelles. Hein, tellement personnelles. Je le prenais trop émotionnellement. OK? Puis ça m'a donné une carapace. Ça m'a formé. T'as vraiment raison, Linda. Ça nous a...
Faut pas oublier. Moi, je m'ai toujours dit... Moi, j'avais 15 ans quand mon père est décédé. Puis je suis convaincue que je ne serais pas la même personne aujourd'hui s'il avait été autour. Je veux pas dire mieux ou pire, mais juste en général, j'aurais pas été la même personne.
Oui, puis tu sais, tu parles de ton père. Mon père voulait me montrer à changer l'huile dans mon char. Puis c'est comme... Tu sais, il voulait me donner les mêmes chances que... Tu sais, il a voulu me montrer à pêcher, mais il a voulu, tu sais... Mais je n'étais pas intéressée. Tu sais, comme, you know, puis je disais, tu sais, regarde, je vais aller là, dans le drive-thru, puis je vais aller faire... changer mon huile là, merci. Tu sais, ça fait que... Mais non, il y a définitivement beaucoup de progrès, puis on pense aussi aux femmes, comme ma mère s'est battue beaucoup pour travailler au gouvernement. Et puis pour l'égalité des salaires, l'égalité salariale,
Wow.
ma mère, elle faisait partie là, du mouvement. C'était là, la génération des femmes qui se battaient pour l'égalité salariale.
Merci, maman.
Oui,
hein?
c'est ça. Tu sais,
Jeez.
ça fait que... oui, non, définitivement, moi, j'ai pas d'enfant, mais j'ai ma nièce. Tu sais, puis j'espère que l'exemple qu'on lui donne, tu sais, c'est définitivement ce que j'ai tiré de mon père. Comme homme, de ma mère comme femme,
Oui.
tu sais, c'est des droits, mais on oublie que c'est nos droits, puis on oublie de forgetting to assert ourselves,
Oui.
tu sais.
Oui.
So, anyways.
Yeah. On the flip side, too, because when we talk about women's rights, I think some men, they don't feel threatened, but they feel, well, what about us, you know?
Yeah.
And, we have to recognize as well, men have also evolved quite a bit, and they've had a lot of opportunities in society with different movements, allowing men to be more emotional, sensitive, and to cry in public and not to hold it all in together. I think men were also under immense pressure to have to be those stereotypes that
Oui.
they were. Yes.
Stoic.
I couldn't imagine having to be like if I could have chosen a role, I would have preferred being the woman cooking in the kitchen. Okay, in the 50s, rather than having to be the man who had to go to work, had to make the money, had to do this, had to do that.
that was a big...
That's a lot of responsibility,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
women also had a lot of responsibility. They had no lives. They had no freedom. They had
Yeah.
that, if they have kids, you're chained to the kids.
Right.
And, so as the rights of women advance, and, the movement about just the LGBTQ plus is, I think, helping a lot with gender roles. I'm not liberal
Right.
or political about this at all.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm just saying that advocacy around different ways of looking at our traditional stereotypes
Right.
and challenging those systems and the anger that it's created in society with all the different perspectives and side taking has been excellent in helping women
Ouais.
take their place, helping men evolve into their place.
Mais c'est que aussi, avec les médias sociaux aujourd'hui, tu sais, avant, il y avait la couverte, puis l'homme tirait de son bord, puis la femme tirait de son
Oui.
bord. Mais là, tout d'un coup, c'est comme,
Oui.
t'as
On
les
a
LGBTQ women,
Oh,
men
right.
pulling on the blanket.
Right,
Parce que
we're
tout
all
le monde,
fighting.
tout le monde veut du temps, tout le monde veut être entendu.
Oui, oui.
Puis il n'y a pas plus d'heures dans une journée.
Non, it's too much. Mais
Je te
c'est
dirais-
dur pour
je te
les
dirais-
enfants.
Je te dirais même, c'est les hommes caucasians qui sont le
Oui.
dernier sur la liste.
Oui,
disons.
Yeah,
absolument.
exactly.
Tu sais, puis,
Exactly. It's true. Like we have women's groups, but
Ouais, tu sais, la clause
we get mad if there's
men,
men's groups.
white men need not apply.
Oui.
Je sais pas si s'ils
White-
mettent encore, là, mais
Yeah,
il y a eu,
that
là,
they're
tu sais,
Voyons
c'est-
donc, il y avait
white
ça, c'est
men
genre?
need not apply. Oui, il y en
Ben
a
voyons
oui,
donc.
absolument.
Yeah.
Tu sais,
Non, c'est pas correct.
dans les temps où ils essayaient d'augmenter le nombre de femmes ou de autochtones ou whatever, là,
Yeah.
white men need not apply.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ça, c'est quand même
I mean,
spécial.
just because history was one way, it does not mean that the men that exist today
Ouais.
are that. I mean, we have to move on at some
Oui,
point.
puis
C'est
Society-
que tout le monde, ensemble, on
Oui.
peut faire un changement.
Yeah, come
Ouais.
on.
Tu sais, ça n'a pas besoin d'être status quo. Là,
Oui,
tu sais.
C'est ça.
Oui.
C'est ça.
Puis le plus qu'on en parle, le mieux que c'est.
C'est ça,
Oui,
exactement.
c'est vrai.
Quelle bonne conversation
Oui, ben
en
oui.
franglais, j'aime ça. Parce que ta région, surtout nous autres, qu'on
Oui.
est une région gouvernement, en fait, c'est obligé. Hein, si tu peux t'adresser dans le langage que tu veux,
Mm-hmm.
et puis c'est la responsabilité des autres d'être capable de te comprendre.
Oui.
Puis mais c'est le fun. C'est
Oui,
le fun
c'est
d'être
le fun.
capable
Oui.
de parler dans notre langue.
Oui.
Puis c'est le fun de parler aussi là, de nos expériences. Mais je pense que c'est surtout à nous autres de continuer la conversation.
Oui.
Puis peut-être qu'on aura la chance de faire des conversations avec des hommes
Oui.
à table pour avoir leur point de vue.
Oui.
Alors, j'espère qu'on vous a fait penser à des petits little nuggets. On vous invite à nous contacter à info@tvc22.ca. Visitez notre site web. tvc22.ca, notre YouTube qui est @studio. TVC22. Donc, merci de nous écouter. Puis, joignez-vous à nous pour d'autres idées et puis continuer la conversation. Merci.
Merci.
Merci, mesdames.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.